Here we go.
Morning, 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 you sexy, beautiful, amazing, wonderful people. How are you all? I hope you are all well on this terrific Tuesday. And on this terrific Tuesday, I did sadly have to cancel this morning's live purely because I had some work commitments that came in last minute that I just couldn't escape. So my apologies for that. But I'll be back tomorrow morning as normal, 10:30 a.m. UK time, as we do some news. But in this video, what are we doing? Because this is video 1 of 3. That's right, 1 of 3, baby. We're going to hit the ground running as we slow things down. We continue to slow things down as myself and the man Eddie the eagle-eyed Edwards go over the Idaho 4 case and bring you back into focus. Make you look at some things that for some people who think Bryan Kohberger did this crime, it is going to get very uncomfortable. But a question that we do keep getting asked is, if Bryan Kohberger didn't do it, who did do it? When did the PCA truly become irrelevant? Who knows? But in this, we're going to look at exactly when that happened and why it happened. So stick around. If you're not subscribed to the channel, do so. It makes me smile. And what better thing to do than to make another person smile in a world where generally we just want to kick everybody in the face. So look, we're going to go back into this. I know you guys like to not only listen but read at the same time, so let's bring this up onto the screen so we can go over it. And thank once again Eddie for his fantastic, and it needs to be done. This sort of thing needs to be done because we can't just continue to let people get railroaded by rich and powerful people for business deals. So look, suppression of evidence was and isn't an option for the prosecution or for prosecution. The bottom line is they praised Kohberger away from the residence, outside the range of the tower that serviced the house. This is interesting. First, Kohberger was placed inside the house. Remember, they've actually stated that he was there, and they've done so with this gift on a platter, this golden goose, if you will, where other law enforcement people have even said themselves that things like this just don't generally happen. Doesn't happen. Wrapped in a bow. This knife sheath with touch DNA. Touch DNA that is being hidden like some of the most dubious secrets that have ever existed. Let's not talk about it. Let's not talk about IgG. Let's get in about 20 people to try and block getting even close to it. But anyway, that's how they placed him inside the house. He's in there. He left his mark. Second, not near the home. Not near it. And last, a substantial distance away from the residence, defined as in the vicinity of a tower that serviced the home. So they're actually saying that Bryan Kohberger was in the vicinity of the physical tower. Again, I've spoke to you before, the devil's in the detail. How can he be at the property when this crime, or when we believe this crime happened, but simultaneously in the vicinity of a tower that serviced the home? So the approximate known limiting range of the tower is known, which would also give us an approximate distance of the state and prosecution's revised version of Kohberger's locations, which obviously was the reason the PCA became irrelevant. Because the PCA, kind of, when you read into it, it doesn't really place Bryan Kohberger at the scene of the crime. It places him away from the property with that verbiage of him being basically at a tower, not at the house. Far too many people know we have 3 and possibly 4 alternate suspects which were and are being shielded from any identification or knowledge of any involvement in the attack. This is undeniable. This is undeniable. So if you're in a position, imagine this, you're law enforcement, right? You've got somebody who's been accused of this crime. We've heard that potentially Bryan Kohberger had stated, and again, this has kind of been rebuffed, but we don't know. But Bryan Kohberger has turned around and said, was anybody else arrested? So even if you think that this guy did this, anybody with any kind of sense could potentially see the problems with the magnitude, the gravity of this crime with such a small time frame, this window, and plus it seemingly was done in silence. So I said yesterday, like a silent movie. So would it be beyond the realms of possibility that someone was in that home with Bryan doing this crime, if he was indeed the perpetrator? Could that be something that law enforcement should potentially look into? Because Bryan Kohberger hasn't come forward and said, yes, I did it on my own, definitely me. So why would law enforcement ignore other DNA profiles at the scene, but seemingly go balls deep in getting Bryan Kohberger's DNA attached to this knife sheath that was found? A knife sheath that just happened to be the same knife sheath that belongs to the kind of knife that is depicted in pictures of the fraternity members. We'll stick a pin in it. You get what I'm saying. We've seen the pictures. We've seen the pictures of them with the... Now, there are other instruments as well, like massive great machetes and melons. Should have named this video Machetes and Melons. I may just do that. So yes, look. So the alternate there is some. So why wouldn't they put as much effort into seeing and making sure that these other DNA samples are nothing to do with this crime? Let me know down below what you think. The heat is on the unidentified males, who we know 2 of those DNA samples were located in the immediate area of the crime scene, per discovery. So the heat is on the prosecution due to Kohberger being a good distance away from the house. This is their own words. They're putting him away from the property. And there's nothing that is actually, apart from the aforementioned golden goose, that places him there. And we can see the convoluted mess around doing this. But look, make no bones about it, that's all they have. All they have is this knife sheath. They're saying that there was no stalking because they've got no evidence of it, so they have to say that there's no stalking. And I know what some people are going to do. The anti-burgers are going to say, no, they just were clever with their verbiage. Clever with it. No, they flat out said, no stalking. Ann Taylor still claiming there is no connection between her client and the victims. So there's a problem there. You can see it. You've even got an FBI agent with many years of experience in doing his job that stipulates that the white Hyundai Elantra around the property, as seen and depicted in the Linda Lane footage, is not Bryan Kohberger's. So think about it. You've got law enforcement saying that Bryan Kohberger was actually away from the property in the vicinity of a tower that serviced it. They've got no phone evidence that says that he is actually at the property at all. They tried to tell you that the reason why he's not caught in the tower's blast, if you like, is because he could have turned his phone off. Or he could have just had shit signal because he was in an area that wasn't covered by the tower. Who knows? But we do know that Cy Ray has come forward and said that without the key elements of what they're trying to... the data that they have, without the key elements of that data, it could actually be exculpatory, because if they add that to the mix, it's likely going to put him somewhere else. So they've kind of covered their own asses there by he was at a tower. He was in the vicinity of a tower that serves the property. Anyway, with me so far, probably not. But there is other DNA, and that raises a huge question. Kohberger being a good distance away from the house, and this as well, right? Because you've got to admit this is a little bit odd. I don't believe the DoorDash driver was there at the same time as the suspected time of the attack as just a coincidence. 4 a.m. in the morning. Who the fuck orders food at 4 o'clock in the morning? And these people seem to want you to believe that these kids, let's call them kids, young adults, they were killed while they were asleep. Killed while they were asleep because they want to paint this picture of this masked person going into this home, and why this was so quick and so silent is because it was done while they were asleep. But on the contrary, you've got evidence that would suggest that's just simply not true. That is not true. We've got phone calls apparently going out to Jack DeCoeur that runs into nearly 3 o'clock in the morning. You've got DoorDash deliveries being ordered by people in the home. You've got texts between people in the home. You've got witnesses who are hearing things, which we spoke about the other day. If you missed that video, go back a couple of days, you'll see it. They both knew. Finally, we know the close proximity of the houses and apartment buildings to the former house, leading me to believe if this was a hit, it would have been with a gun. In and out, within seconds, the hitmen would not have known the identities of the survivors versus the victims, nor is it likely the lives of Dylan Mortensen and Bethany Funk would have been spared. Which I alluded to this, I think it was yesterday, when we talk about cartels or D-Rugs and their involvement. I know that it's a popular theory, but if that's the case and someone went in there to clear shit up and it was of this gravity, this magnitude, then, and this was business, strictly business, baby, strictly business executes everyone in the home, there wouldn't have been any reason to leave anyone alive who was a potential witness to this crime. Just simply not. You've got to think about the mechanics of the entire scenario, the entire thing, what happened, how it happened. Why would there potentially be people left alive? Could it have been that there was people who knew one another? Did they know one another? Were people scared of things? Were people bribed, leveraged upon? There's lots of questions. Now that Kohberger is out of the picture, because technically he is, apart from the golden goose knife sheath that, I know exists and we can't ignore it, but we have to admit that the verbiage within the PCA would seemingly suggest that Bryan Kohberger simply wasn't at the property, with evidence to support. We can ignore it all we like, but then we have to consider that people who should be good at their job, and that is their functionality within the realms of what they do, they're just not good at it. Now that Kohberger was out of the picture, we have a DoorDash driver. We have alternative suspects, DNA taken directly from the crime scene, and one possible suspect's DNA located outside the house. Of course, he was included in the protection order. We're seeing a lot of this. We're seeing a lot of protection orders. Remember the 5th of November, you can actually put a protective order upon documentation again. I know there's a lot of people who seem to think that when they mention protection order, that is specifically about an individual. So who are these protected individuals? And that is sadly incorrect to think that. They can set up protection orders for documentation. It could be simply that they want to protect some kind of confidentiality between person A and person B if there are things being spoken about within those documents. So that's why they occasionally put protection orders on documentation. And a possible fourth suspect. 4 suspects known to be at and in the house, with a 5th possibly involved. But Kohberger's now disclosed location isn't even close to the house. I think the wind is about to blow in Idaho. So look, there's a lot to take in. There's a lot to think about. There's a lot to consider. But what we're trying to do, what we're trying to ascertain by slowing things down and looking at everything, and I know there's going to be people who disagree. There's going to be people, again, the ball's deep in Bryan Kohberger, his guilt. They're going to find it very hard, and they're going to try every single thing they can to try and twist and manipulate. But the facts are the facts. And when I say facts, I'm not talking about News Nation. I'm not talking about Coffin Dodger. I'm not talking about Nancy Disgrace. I'm not talking about any of these legacy media places that their jobs are simply to push a narrative, keep people happy, and go where the money is. I'm talking about going through the documents. I'm talking about going through things that are said within the courtroom. I'm talking about all of the right and proper stuff. And the right and proper stuff, the court documentation, would lead you to believe that there is a lot missing here. And there is a lot of things that raise the question as to why are you looking so hard in this direction when there's stuff in this direction that even if you want to believe Bryan Kohberger was involved in this crime, you still, at this stage, surely would want to eliminate the possibility, the potential that there was other people involved. Even James Fry, right at the very beginning, was interested in a car that had occupants within it. More than one. More than one. And how many of you out there, let me know again in the comments, would seemingly want to suggest that this crime was done by more than one person, and does find it quite difficult to imagine one single solitary person, a person who couldn't even fillet a fish. He did this crime. Let me know down below what you think. And I'll catch you all later on today, because there's 2 more videos. I nearly said tomorrow. That would have shot me in the foot, wouldn't it? Anyway, love you all. Mwah.